All right, so for this week's project, we're going to be taking a look at this Sony 5-disc CD player. This is model CDP-CE345. And this unit belongs to one of my home customers who brought it in to me for repair. And he says that he doesn't use this very often, but he would like to use it again. And it's actually been so long since he's used it that he's not sure if he remembers what the actual problem was, but says that it may have something to do with the disc tray coming in and going out of it. So as always, we'll take it apart and see if we can figure out what's going on for him. If I remember right, this should have a KSS 213 optical pickup in it, or a version of the 213. I think there was some following letters after the 213, but we'll see what it has in it once we get it opened up. And this would be where they started to shrink them down a little bit, not so much for the depth of it, but for the height. The earlier versions would be a little taller than this one, but this one still looks like it's in pretty good shape. It doesn't look like it's got too many scratches on it, and looks like it's been pretty well taken care of. So we'll see if we can figure out what's happening for him. The unit was made in 2000, and so that got me thinking about Dokken in particular and what they were doing around that time. And of course, when it comes to this band, if I can't have George Lynch as the lead guitarist, I think I preferred John Norum over Reb Beach a little bit. And this is one of my favorite records that John did the guitar work on, and this is the album Long Way Home. And we're going to listen to a little bit of my favorite song from this. This is called You. Then we'll get started on the song.
It's not all about into the light of the sun. Now you're gone. Send me a word out of faith. You'll be home far away. It's time you're leaving. Take a break down to the shore. You used to love it when the holy waters flowed. Maybe you'll find your long lost message in a bottle sent long ago. Is it just all about you?
All right, picking back up with you. Let's have a look at the front panel and check out the buttons they provided for us, starting at the far left here. They do have a hard latching power switch, and I'm not sure if once the unit is on, if there's a button on the remote that would actually put it into standby so you don't have to physically go up to the unit and turn it on and off. He didn't bring over the remote, so I'm not sure about that. We do have an edit time fade button, the very popular Sony feature of peak search, which basically will scan the entire disc looking for the highest musical peak, so you can set your record levels for whatever you're using to record your disc. We have 1 through 5 direct disc entry buttons, and we also have shuffle, program, and we have the continue button. We have repeat and time. Of course, that will just cycle through the various time modes, counting from 0 to the length of the disc or the length of the track versus counting from the entire duration of the disc down. We have music scan. We have a fader button, which would be very useful for someone recording something. And then, of course, the disc navigation, play, pause, stop, in-track search, check and clear, the open and close button, and then we have the exchange button. And that is, you can actually open the tray while a disc is playing and have access to a few slots in the tray to switch out your disc while the actual unit is playing a disc. We have disc skip, and then we have a pretty cool feature here. This is an infinite rotary control for track skip forward and track skip reverse. So very nice. There's a little display here in the front, and again, this does kind of shrink it down a little bit versus the other ones that were in the early days, were a little taller. There isn't anything in the back worth taking a look at, just a couple of RCA jacks and a power cord that's built in. So I guess the first thing we'll do, we'll go ahead and get the lid off of it, and we'll see what's going on. So give me a second for that, and we'll pick back up. All right, picking back up with you, and this is what I've discovered. When you turn the unit on, we do get the display, but all I hear is a motor running in there. Yeah, something's happening. Obviously the tray is not wanting to come out. And if I remember right, we're gonna have to disassemble the whole thing, basically just take the whole thing apart, the face and everything, to get down to the bottom of the mechanism so we can find out what's happening. If there's something, if I remember right, there should be like some type of orange colored belt that runs that mechanism in and out. It's some kind of Sony thing. It's not like a standard rubber belt. So, all right, I'll go ahead and start tearing it down. It's not a big deal to get one of these apart, if I remember right. And this one doesn't even have screws. You just pressed onto the frame. So started cheaping them up a little bit. So, all right, I'll go ahead, I'll tear it down, and then I'll bring you back, and we'll see why it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Also, we got error blinking on the front. I don't ever remember seeing that back in the day. So, all right, let's get it taken apart. All right, coming back in, and I was able to get the front panel removed from the unit, and there was actually a few screws under the bottom, one in each one of the little plastic legs and one in the center. And then to get the mechanism out, basically earlier versions of this, as I remember it, the bottom would kind of come off, like it would disconnect from this back portion and maybe the front portion, and you could slide the bottom out and have access to the bottom of the mechanism. But this one, being a little newer than what I recall, you have to actually unscrew the mechanism from the bottom of the unit to get it out. So everything was fine till I got to this screw, and then from that point I had to get the tray out. And of course, they do give you a screwdriver slot on the cam gear that moves the tray in and out. And I was able to get it out, and everything looks fine as far as the gears and stuff, but they did change that orange serpentine belt that used to be in those old ones to just a standard rubber belt. And of course this one was laying in the bottom, and it's pretty gooed and pretty stretched out. Hasn't turned to goo yet, but it's, you know, at least a size and a half more than it probably should be. So what we need to do is find ourselves a replacement belt for this. And I did recall correctly, it does have a KSS 213. It's a 213B optical pickup, but pretty much standard Sony stuff here. Probably won't be too many more years until the capacitors used on the servo board for the laser assembly, the feeder motor and stuff like that, if that's what those are for, those will start to go bad, and then that'll become a problem. But if it ain't a problem, we're not going to mess with it. We're going to leave it alone. But pretty much that's it. Whole shebang comes out. There's a few, like I said, 2 screws each side, and you'll be able to see where the screw slots are at here. And then there's one down inside here you have to get out, and then there's 3 or 4 across the back that you access from the outside, and then it'll come right out. No big deal. Let me check through my belt stash. I probably have that belt. It looks very common, and we'll put a new belt in this and see if it'll work. So give me a second for that. All right, coming back in, and went ahead and got a belt put in the mechanism. I had the exact one, brand new, and basically what I've got going on here is the front panel is hooked up to it, just kind of draped off to the side. The power switch that's in the front panel, we don't really need it to do what I want to do. Basically, the power cord of the unit meets that power switch with the AC input to the transformer for the main board. So what I've done is just basically take the connector off, just gently pull the the leads out of the connector head, and jumped in the suicide cord, and that got us on, so we can see if the tray will rotate, go in and come out, and make sure it'll read a disc. Last thing we want to do is put it all back together and then figure out that there's something else going on. And the tray does go in and come out as it should. Cycles through looking for a disc. It doesn't find one. It'll just go to the rest position. And so what we're going to do is we're going to find a disc, and we're going to put a disc in it. And we'll just hit play, and it should find what we want. There we go. Let's see what's going on here. Oh yeah, we're good to go there. Yeah, no trouble at all. And I always check the exchange function, because it's possible that, maybe not on this model, but on the earlier ones, it was possible that the tray would come out and go in, but the exchange function had something wrong with it. So let's double check that. That comes out, and it'll move the tray just a little bit to give you access, but it won't give you access to the slot that that disc came out of. And it goes back in. Good deal. Well, luckily, getting an easy one, that's always fun. So I think the next thing to do, let's go ahead and let's put it all back together, and we'll do a few tests on it, and might be able to call this one done. So give me a second. Title track from Skyscraper. I think it seems to be working okay. I don't anticipate any trouble. If it'll play that burn CD, it shouldn't have any trouble with commercial CDs. So I think let's go ahead and get the lid on it and do a final play test and wrap this one up as a quick and easy one, which is a rare thing on my bench anyway. So give me a second for that, and we'll finish up. All right, as we come back in one last time for a final play test on our Sony CDP-CE345 compact disc player. I want to thank you guys very much for checking out the video this week, and all the new people that have found the channel. Hopefully you find something of interest here with the project that we're working on, or something that you've got laying around that might need some repair. If you happen to have this particular model of CD player, and when you turn it on, all you hear is motor noise, it's very likely that the same belt is bad in yours that was bad in this one. And taking it apart is not too bad. If you've never done it before, it can be a little cumbersome, but for the most part, if you take your time, it should be no problem. In the beginning of the video, I talked about how I preferred John Norum's playing to Reb Beach's playing in the band Dokken. And this is, of course, if we can't have George Lynch in the band, which would be preferred. But I think it's only fair that we do a little sample of Reb's playing. And we're going to take a track off the Erase the Slate album. I was lucky enough to get to see Dokken on this tour about 30 minutes from my house at a bar. And they did an excellent set. Of course, pretty much just playing all the greatest hits. And they did play a few songs from this album. And one of my favorite songs from this record is called Shattered. So let's hear a little bit of this. And again, I want to thank you guys very much for checking out the channel.